May the 26th might be your last chance. Get your family, get your friends, and everybody go in there and vote, and we will do the best job here. This is your old friend George. Come on there, old man. How you doing there? My name, and you not their faces, and you not their faces. I found they were all, like strangers to me, like strangers to me. Oh, this is the finest crowd I've seen in a long time.
As we have in the past, we will start with the district races. As we come to each office, it'd be appreciated if the candidates who want to speak would come on around so you can be introduced.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm U.S. Howard, run for Magistrate District 2. I served as your magistrate 4 years, and my records speak for themselves. I helped with the roads, the bridges. I helped with the schools getting their gyms built. I helped in the voting precincts getting their voting machines back and redistricted. And I did a lot of good things that have proven I work for the people.
Another candidate from District Number 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is William Lewis. I'm a candidate for Magistrate in District 2. Appreciate all the votes and help I can get. And if I am elected, and after serving you 4 years, and if I ain't a magistrate you can stand up and be proud of, I'll promise you I won't be out there in your face embarrassing you asking for your vote in the next primary election. When you go out there and vote, you vote for a man, not a mouse. Elect me for your magistrate in District 2. Thank you.
My name is Hannah Begley. I'm running for jailer, and I've been cooking for 34 years and everything. Everybody knows I'm a good cook, so whenever you get in jail, you need to worry about being fed good because I'll feed you good. And I'll keep the jail clean and everything, and whenever you need help, you'll get help. If you come in there no pants on, you'll have something whenever you leave. And whenever, I'll fix you something to eat too besides a bologna sandwich. It won't be a bologna sandwich. And I appreciate it. Everybody comes out and votes for me on May the 26th. Thank you.
That first race I run, the only thing I done was come down here in fall, had a good horse. There wasn't no cars much. I hitchhike a ride about. Walk my shoes out and everything else across these mountains. Talking and walking.
That's what campaign is done during that.
But you had a good fly. I was quite young and pretty good looking man. I kissed a lot of babies and had a good time. Oh, yeah.
That's a part of it.
Oh, Lord, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fun in that.
Nobody enjoys politics more than I do. When election day comes up, I have the best time I wish to come up at least once a month. And I have the best time on that day, and I get to see all my friends and neighbors and people that I haven't seen for a long time. Just a hug and a kiss. And it seems like they're not a worry in the world. No use of getting mad. I have the best time ever was. Some of them, they get mad in elections. I don't get mad. I just get out and have a good time and get all I can in for the Republican Party.
In this county, as a general rule, it's a Republican as an alternative to another Republican. Whoever wins the primary is almost a sure shoe-in, you know, as the winner in the general election. There's a lot of, especially among a lot of older people, and not so old people, even a lot of young people will not vote out from under the cabin. They will pull the big lever. And, you know, that's been a successful way to campaign in the past. You know, don't mess your ballot up, pull the big lever on the log cabin. And it's been rather successful.
If I thought the Democrat was the best man, I just stayed back and never voted. Let him have the swing.
Why wouldn't you vote for him if you thought he was the best man?
Well, it was. I was Republican.
If I thought the Democrat was the best candidate, would I vote for him? That was your question. I don't know how I would. I've never had that to happen yet. If that ever happens, I'll answer this.
I pulled a big lever.
Do you always do that?
I haven't always done that, really. Most of the time I have. I just feel that I had a good purpose for it this time.
Our total registration is 2,146 Democrats to 6,932 Republicans.
A lot of our people have been taught to be Republicans. The majority of our forefathers were Republicans. Therefore, they've told son and daughter, this is their party. And this has gone in very much so in our churches, too, as well. I myself, I'm a Baptist Republican, and I'm proud of it. And my folks in front of me were Baptist Republicans.
At the time of the outbreak of the Civil War here in Leslie County, very, very few people in the county were slave owners. And consequently, the overwhelming majority of the people in Leslie County were sympathetic toward the Union. And for the most part, up until quite recently, the people here in the county still trace their party allegiance back to that period in time when they supported the cause of the Union, and of course they identified with the Republican Party and with Lincoln.
At the beginning, I think the Republican Party was the party of the people. It was the party of Abraham Lincoln. It was the party of the Homestead Law, which opened the land in the West to small farmers instead of turning it over to great land companies. Lincoln was a man of the people. And in those formative years, it was the liberal party. In fact, it was called the Black Republican Radical Party. And in a place like Leslie County, it's a folk memory of that time.
We were wondering, what brought you here to the county line today?
To see President Nixon.
Have you been a fan of his for a while?
All the time.
Just happened to hear he's going to come by, and my wife wanted to see him, so I brought him.
The closest that us people in Leslie County gets to someone like that is on television. And over here, we'll get to see him in person.
Well, just like I say, I think he's the best president we've ever had.
One thing, he knows how to handle foreign countries, I think. Better than any president we ever had.
I don't know, I think he's just done a great job as president.
We like him or we wouldn't be here. Yeah. Okay, that's what...
You know, I guess he's the sharpest president we had since Roosevelt, don't you think?
I've already been to Peking, and I've been in New York, and I'd been in Miami, Florida, and I'd been over to Los Angeles, and I thought this was a nice place to come to.
Is there any particular reason for coming to Hyde?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we had an invitation to come here from an invitation from a very good friend, Tim Lee Carter. I had not been to his district while I was president, and I felt that once I finished my book and was able to start accepting invitations, this just happened to come on the top of the list. He called me, or I called him on the phone and said, okay, that's the way it worked out, one of those things. And also, I like the people down here.
But we considered a lot of people, and we invited Gerald Ford. But we decided early that whomever we honored and named this place after would have to be with us. President Ford, it would have been named after President Ford had he come. But it was our 100th birthday, and we wanted the person with us. And had President Ford accepted, it would have been named the Gerald Ford Recreation Center. But he didn't, you know, things happen that way. Nixon did accept, and so we named it after him.
I still think it was a great honor to have the president come here to the Hyden and Leslie County for his coming out party, as they called it back them days. He had been exiled more or less for a long, long time there. And I think even people here who weren't Nixon people banded together for the sake of the county. I think our people here were willing to play the host. We felt that it was our duty. I think this is a Kentucky custom and a hill country custom to take you in and to treat you, tell you the first thing, well, make yourself right at home. That's one of our old sayings here, and I think we did this same thing for Richard Nixon. And I think it became a county-wide thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 37th President of the United States, Honorable Richard M. Nixon.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Judge Munsey, all of the very distinguished guests on the platform behind me, all of the very distinguished guests in the audience in front of me, and all of those outside who were unable to get in, may I first say how deeply grateful I am for your very warm reception. To those people outside who think it's a little warm, you ought to be in here. Not only for your warm reception, but for the honor you have paid to invite me to participate in this centennial celebration for this county and this town as well. I believe that I can say, in addressing all of you, not only my fellow Americans, but since I understand later in the program I may be named an honorary citizen, at least for a time, of this county, my fellow Kentuckians.
I think that my beliefs and the way government ought to run parallel President Nixon's. I've always admired him ever since I was in grade school and when he was vice president. I've always been for him every time he ever ran.
But let me tell you about another side of America, a side I know, and I think a side you know as well. There are millions across this land who have not lost faith in America, who believe America should be strong, who believe that we should maintain our commitments throughout the world. And as far as that spirit that I have just described is concerned, you'll find it in great cities, you'll find it in small towns, you'll find it in the farms and the factories and the mines. You'll find it in teaching profession, in students. You'll find it all over this country. That's the real America. And I'll tell you, I know that spirit is strong and healthy right here in the heartland of America, Leslie County, Kentucky.
Our forefathers were a real tough stock of people to ever come in here and make a go of it here. when they first come, it had to be awfully, awfully rough. They had to absolutely live off the land as they found it, and they found it rough.
The thing that makes Leslie County somewhat different is that roads came late to Leslie County, and because of that, modern influences have operated on it somewhat less than they have in the adjoining counties, such as Letcher and Harlan and Perry, where the railroads came and the coal towns were built. They were built in those counties about 1911 to 1920, and for all practical purposes, Leslie County, by contrast, was not industrialized till the Second World War, about 30 years later. Letcher County, Harlan, Perry were all strong Republican counties. Well, when they were industrialized, the people in large numbers moved off the farms and moved into the coal towns and coal camps, and there they became unionized when the New Deal came. And when they became unionized, thousands of them became Democrats, for example. They became what was called in the 30s Roosevelt Democrats or New Deal Democrats. They gave up their old Republican allegiances. Many of the strongest Democrats in Letcher County today, for example, or in Perry, will be old men who were raised as Republicans, or they'll be younger people whose fathers were Republicans. That didn't happen in Leslie because they were still living on farms.
Coal production in this county has gone up about 400%. We're now mining almost 5 million tons of coal. For the first time, people are living a good life, making good wages, probably better than union mines, and sharing in the wealth for a change. The new strip mine law has hurt us to a great extent, but coal is just beginning in Leslie County. Our unemployment is lower than the national average. Things are going well.
Until your miners came up and started making money in the range of $25,000 to $30,000 a year, you had no middle class. You either had attorneys, coal operators, or peons. That's what you had in Leslie County. The people that worked in the mines worked for a pittance in Leslie County. They were way below the scales for example, a Prairie County or a Harlan County.
Down through the years, the Republican Party, and this hasn't been true in Leslie County, has always, they usually thought the Republican Party as being made up of a lot of rich people, and the Democrat Party has always claimed to be the working man's party, but most of us are not Republicans because we're rich people, because there's no rich people here.
Well, the per capita income, according to the Department of Labor or whoever does it, is about $2,200 per year.
And whatever you may hear to the contrary, America's worth living for. And in the future, for generations to come, people in all countries will look back on your generation, and they will say to you, or about you, God bless you, and God bless America.
It's my attitude that the office of the presidency is a tremendously important office in America. And those people that occupy it do good and evil. And he got caught doing his evil and left it.
He made errors of judgment in regards to the protection of his friends. And I accept that view totally. People may think Nixon is a criminal or whatever they might think about him. But, you know, how long does a man punish? How long do we kick somebody who's down? Especially a man who spent his life serving his country. Everybody makes mistakes. And if Nixon made any mistakes, certainly the good that he did should cause people to say, we forgive and we forget.
Well, now you asked me that question, brother. We know it was all crooked, but we know every one of the rest done the same thing. He got caught and they didn't.
Hello here. What's our candidate for county judge executive here. I want to win this thing this morning. So we got the best crowd here we've ever had. How y'all here, folks? How you like my hay? How you doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, since I'm in office and evidently all these candidates want me out, I think I'll ask them to go first and tell you why I should be voted out, and then I'll try to tell you why I should stay in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stayed in here. I served 16 years. I didn't lead none of you boys and your friends to the federal penitentiary. You enjoyed 16 years of peace and prosperity. You need a man that will be elected and put in by the people and not a posse. We've had a man as chairman of the Republican Party for several years now. And legally, you know that there's no elected official can be a Republican chairman or a Democrat chairman. The only reason they will plow their way into a position like that is to stack the election officers everywhere they can stack them against anybody that they don't want to vote for, and they know it. You check the vote precinct here in Haddon. Check the vote precinct down at Midway, Kentucky. Check the precinct down at Wilder Branch. Or check any other precinct, and you got one of the Muncie clan or the heavy Muncie supporters in it, and you know it.
George Wooten and his buddies have been on my back from the day that I won that primary, and they're still on my back, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to get them off of my back. Despite everything that he could throw at me, despite every lie that they could put in the papers, write in, supporting candidates in the fall against the party's nominee, I persevered anyway. And I've done more for you than George Wooten did in 12 years or could do in 20. But this is the most critical election in the county's history. And I don't have any doubt in mind about the results of how it's going to be. I'm so sure that I'm going to win that I'm going to invite everybody who wants to come, friend and foe, to this courthouse on the evening of the 26th, and I'll have you something to eat here, and you can celebrate with me. I don't expect those people who are for George Wooten to do anything for me. I've never asked them to, and I don't intend to this time. The people who are for Judge Wooten can continue to be for Judge Wooten, and they will, like they say, and that's fine with me. But the one thing about it
And I've found in my travels throughout this county, my friends are sticking with me too. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody home? Why, howdy, howdy. I thought I'd better come out here. I might pass up a boat.
George has run out. I mean, he was a big figure in our lives, you know, for 12 years. And even beyond that, he's been running since 1946. He ran for sheriff and got beat when he first came back from the war. And then he ran again 4 years later and won. And then at the end of that term, he started running for county judge. I believe it would have been in '54. And he's been running for county judge 4 years ever since. And he won 3 terms. And when I beat him, if he'd have used his head, he would have supported me, and then we would have elected him state representative or state senator or something like that. He hasn't known when to quit.
I better move my car here. Liable to lose a vote, get a man in late to work. See you, Ed.
The first election that I was in, I tried to hit all the homes in Leslie County. Of course, that's impossible because it takes about, I'd say you could spend a year trying to get up everybody in their homes. So I did that a lot the first time, and then when the speaking started, we had one in every precinct, and that made it a little easier to meet people. And then in the last campaign, I visited homes to some extent, but mainly just went to the speakings. During those 7 years, though, I have learned that politics in Leslie County is a matter of having support by families. There's about 2,500 families in Leslie County, and if you get a majority of the families on your side, then you will win, and nobody can beat you.
If you were working this area here, you'd call a meeting in people from, say, from Camp Creek, from Hurricane, from you know, the different areas, and have a meeting, and you'd have a voters list, and you go right down the list, each individual name, and somebody there will know everybody that's registered to vote. And they'll have a real good idea of who they're for and why. And they'll probably know their wife's name and their children's name, and even their dogs, and how many, if they got any hogs or cattle. I mean, you know, they'll know the whole background, and you'll discuss this person. And it may be that that person is closely related to the person that you're running against. Well, you might well just forget them and move on down to the next name, or maybe you've got a shot at this fellow here. Somebody will say, well, I know how I can talk to him. He's maybe through relationship. His brother married my aunt, and you know, we get along real good. I'll talk to him tomorrow. I'll see him tomorrow, and you'll work like that. And he'll hug him and say, well, I know Aunt Lily Bell and my great-grandma was the best of friends, went to school together, and, you know, I want you to be sure to vote for me. You know, we're kin. This sticks, and, you know, you go away with a good feeling if you're kin to somebody. I think this goes all the way back to our forefathers and, you know, families helping each other, and the independence that we had to have, and we needed each other in hard times. There's times when some of the family would get in trouble, about to starve out. Years ago, or maybe even now for that matter, well, they could get help from their kin people. That's still true.
I have captured the support of most of the families, most of the important families in each precinct in Leslie County, and I look to those people for advice as to all work that gets done in the county. And so I spend a lot of my time in office, campaigning year-round, campaigning for 3 years, not by going out and shaking hands and asking people to vote for me, but by doing the work that the heads of these families recommend that I do in each precinct. And so more or less that's the kind of campaign I've been doing since the campaign started and winter broke on the 1st of March. I have been going out in the county and seeing that the people's roads are graveled, seeing that they're ditched and graded, putting in drain tile, setting up bridge projects and building bridges, and of course, like today, starting blacktop. We are blacktopping in a couple places in Leslie County to show the people that when we promise that we can blacktop 100 miles of road in the next 4 years, that we know what we're talking about and that we do have the ability to do it.
In the May primary, when me and Judge Munch was running, you could see big steel beams laying up and down the road. They threw truckload after truckload to let them like this building bridges. And the bridge is still not built. But that's a good thing to get people to vote for you. And then loads of gravel, covered, you know, anywhere to get a vote. And promises. But promises will catch up with you. You can promise a little, but you got to start producing, you know. You got to start producing.
When George Newton was judge over there, several of them had went, you know, to get him to come work on the road. But I'd ask him once. And my husband was in the hospital, and we was aiming to bring him home. And I went over there, and I said, George, we're going to bring the old man home Saturday. I said, wish to goodness you'd get over there and do something on the road. Be right over there tomorrow. Well, he didn't come. And we had to carry Sam across the hill. Well, George run again, you see, and he come right up to me and he said, well, I reckon you're sure going to vote for me? I said, no, sir. I said, I sure can't. He said, why? I said, I asked you for a favor. I said, it wouldn't hurt you a bit. And I said, you just, you promised me, but I said, that's all I got. I said, we had to carry my husband across that mountain on stretchers. And I said, it's just too late. He said, no, it's never too late. He said, I'll be over there tomorrow to fix the road. I said, it's just too late. And I didn't vote for it. But that's all they promise you, but they won't do nothing. And I got used to that.
It's done a little bit better for the last couple of years, but used to, not many years ago, they never scraped the road, no matter how many chug holes or something was in it, till election was coming up. Then you'd see them coming in with it. Then they'd put on a few extra men, knowing that they'd get them to vote for them, and just as soon as it was over with, they'd fire them. And some of them's never learned that that's what they do. They use them. And that's true.
In our cultural setting, people get elected because the voters, in the main, tend to select people because of personal attributes. He's a good storyteller. He's accommodating, as they say. He's helpful. He's good-natured. I'm thinking of one politician now who's virtually unbeatable because he knows the first name of everybody in the county, and he helps them and does things for them and makes them think he helps them, and which is lots of times just as important as actually helping them in various ways. So they get elected, not because they have plans for the county, but because people regard them as accommodating.
The first thing you do to change any government is to take it over within the lawful, legal way. That's what we've done in Leslie County. You know, we've took over the governments. Now, you know, we're political just like everybody else. We're a political machine. You know, we intend to win and, you know, in the free, convince the people, get them on your side, and then you'll change things.
People want to get elected to these local offices because people see those offices in the courthouse as extremely important. People want to be county judge because it puts them in a position to grant favors, which means that they have the gratification of having a great number of people come into the office and ask for help. And if the judge grants it, presumably he builds up a political set of debts that are paid to him. He and his friends can control the schools, they can control taxes. His buddy may get control of the sheriff's office. If he is lucky, he can get his men on the fiscal court so that he and his friends as a clique can run the county. Then they can run the schools, and it becomes what Professor Robert Ireland of the University of Kentucky calls a little kingdom.
Leslie County there's two factions. One faction controls the courthouse and the school board, and the other faction, of course, is out. And all we had to do is hang on to our friends and these families that I've been talking about. And so long as they're convinced of the truth, then nobody can win besides me. And in my opinion, that's what exists right now. My friends are staying with me. Judge Wooten's faction is being attacked by Mr. William Begley, and he's capturing some of George's families. And so I should win rather handily this time.
Well, a lot of these people think if you vote against the person that's in the office now, that these people will get mad at you and they won't give you a job, or if you have a aunt or an uncle or a mother, father, somebody working in the school system, then they think they're going to fire them.
The chairman is the one selects and picks election officers, see? And when they pick election officers, if they so desire or want to, they can pick officers that will either defeat or elect any candidate that they want to in any average East Kentucky county. But if they don't work together, then you've got a chance. Maybe you'll have a Republican group will be, and they can't web together on the day of the election in the voting precincts. Now, there's some straight officers, but there's some areas where they're hand-picked to get the people that can't read and write, to get the people that can be bought, and get the people that will just let the judges of the election vote them for whoever they want to vote for. And that's big and heavy in this East area.
What happens in a case like that is people that need assistance in voting, they go in there to vote, and they ask for assistance. Naturally, when you're going to vote for a candidate and his brother is there as the officer, then it would be more influential to vote for him than it would if someone else was in there that was unbiased to either side.
I don't know. I just don't know what to think anymore. They've just got me so confused. I'm telling you the truth. I don't know. I just know I'm a good, strong Republican.
Politics is crooked any way you take them, and about anybody starts them. If you don't take her on a straight race and be straight, you're going to be there.
I do know that the position of county judge executive in a small county, a person naturally has a great deal of power. And you think in terms of the county judge executive, and you couple with that the county attorney, and you add to that a third person who is an attorney in private practice. And it seems clear to me that with that, you do have collectively a great deal of power and influence within an area. And that appears certainly to be the case in Leslie County. What the defendants did was to fill out absentee ballots on behalf of various people in Leslie County, and then sit down and actually vote those ballots, and then have the voters sign their name to it. The voter did no more than sign their names. And then those ballots had to go through the United States mails as the final step in order to be a valid ballot received back in the clerk's office. So the fact that this was a local election did not give rise to any federal jurisdiction until the misuse of the United States mails came into it. That's what gave the federal authorities jurisdiction to go in and investigate it and prosecute it. Now, the violations that Mr. Muncie and the others were charged with were basically two violations. The first of all, it was to be essentially involved in a scheme Now, that is somewhat comparable to a conspiracy. The second, and there were numerous counts on the second half, dealt with the individual ballots that were misused and placed in the mails. So essentially what you had was Muncie and Morgan and Collett and some other people involved in a scheme, or in a sense, a conspiracy to attempt, at least, to influence the election.
All of this happened after President Nixon came to Leslie County. And I think that's the only reason where we were tried. They singled us out, and, you know, to some extent they had some success. The government treated us just like they treated President Nixon. I don't think President Nixon was guilty of what he did, and I think the only reason that this case was prosecuted was because we exercised our freedom and invited him to come down to Leslie County, and when the government learned of that in the summer of 1978, that's when they decided that they would get me. And, you know, to some extent they've got me, but, you know, we've lost the battle, but we're going to win the war, I think.
I can speculate as to why Muncie would tell the people that he was being prosecuted because of his inviting Nixon. And that would be, in the first instance, he knew what he had done, and he knew that what he'd done was improper and wrong and criminal conduct. I think that historically, you find very few public officials who are charged with an offense who will stand up and say, I did it, and enter a plea of guilty. Rather, what they appear to do, and particularly what Muncie did, was attempt to distract people away from what had happened by trying to construct an offense and say, look, this was politically motivated. In a sense, they drag a red herring across the prosecution. And I think it's an effort to deceive the people. It's an effort to save face, and certainly it's an effort to somehow or another soothe your ego. And perhaps that's why Muncie did these things.
This was just an extension of the political battlefield in Leslie County, that's all. You know, you lose some, you win some, but we're not down, and we're down a little, but we'll be back.
The appeal process is going to take a year and a half. It hasn't really even begun yet, but at the end of that, based on just observing Judge Seiler and the type of sentences that he hands out, that these fellows will serve time, yes.
For the past 4 years, I haven't seen a minute's peace. Things that they do, they accuse me of doing. Vernon Baker and George Wooten said they would spend $10,000 and see me in the penitentiary. And they have come close to doing it. But ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that I could do a better job if I was in Atlanta over the phone than they could do if they held that office. I don't guess George Wooten ever had anything to do with an absentee ballot or Vernon Baker. He just got 10 in his newspaper mailbox, but for some reason nobody never asked about that.
I'd have won, I'd have been your judge before, but there's too many of them absentee ballots rolled in here, 1,762 of them. I didn't send them to the penitentiary. The federal court moved in. And God, I'm glad we've got a God, and I'm glad we've got a higher court that'll dish out justice with 12 jurymen selected. They're the ones, if they went to the penitentiary, I didn't send them.
They spent every session at the grand jury in Lexington. They were at every single day of the trial. They're like a bunch of vultures ready to pounce on something. Coaching witnesses. Who knows, maybe even buying witnesses. And George Wooten was right down there, and you would see him with the families of the jurors that tried my case, and see him with his arm around their neck and taking them to lunch and feeding them poison.
But I did attend the trials. I wanted to know what went on. I could never figure how they could win an election like they did. They beat me 28 votes the first time, and they beat me a little over 100 the other time. Could them absentee ballots kind of help to do that? How many of them was honest? Let's have a fair election. Let's get honesty in this county. Thank you. Take your family on May the 26th and vote for your old friend George for county judge executive, and I'll be satisfied. Get your friends together. Get us some good workers. Go out there and hand out your cards and get everybody to vote that can. Every vote counts. Elect your old friend George, and I'll bring the good things back to Leslie County, and it'll be an honor. It'd be great that you're living in Leslie County under my next 4 years, and I believe I'll be your judge. I really believe that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. God bless you. I hope you live 10,000 years and never die.
Get in here and read, but we have to have a sanctuary. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to your collection. Appreciate your help.
Boy, you look sharp in that outfit.
I pass them on down the line with who's the
One thing we wanted to know is just about this list. As people come in, are you kind of checking them off?
Well, see, we've got what I've got here is we've got our friends with a check mark by them, and we work from this checklist to see to it their friends get out to vote. And as they come to vote, we check them off, and then we know who to go get and so forth.
So if somebody doesn't show up, then you'll send
somebody after them. That's right.
Well, are they generally coming in this time?
Yeah.
Like a good turnout?
Yeah. Good turnout, probably vote about, I'd say about 80%, maybe.
Is that right?
Yeah. Maybe, I say. There's 601 altogether, and I predict it might hit between 300 and 400 somewhere, maybe.
How do you feel about it so far?
I've got it won.
Really?
Yeah.
You seem pretty confident.
I am.
How can you tell, sir?
Well, I know who my friends are, and we've done the same thing in every precinct. All we have to do is get them out to vote, and we will. We've got sufficient friends to get them out to vote. It's all over but counting. And getting everybody out. Still some more hard work, but yeah, we'll win. Certainly will.
Muncie, 31. Begley, 29. Wooten, 58. Jacks Creek, number 6. Muncie, 246. Begley, 118. Wooten, 104. Greasy, number 16. Muncie, 48. Begley, 50. Wooten, 16. Midway, number 13. Muncie, 175. Wooten, 94. Okay, Bad Creek, number 7. Muncie, 107. Wooten, 88. Wooten, number 5. Muncie, 182.
2,187.
Begley,
George Wooten, 1,704. We're ahead by 534. There's no way we can lose, so we've won. I think that we have accomplished several things. Among them, the retirement for good of George Wooten.
Totals in the judge's race on the Republican ticket: C. Allen Muncie, 2,234. George Wooten, 1,757.
They've called us everything under the sun, but I guess from one crook to some more crooks, we beat the hell out of it. Yes, sir. These people are personal friends that I have served in various ways, and they knew more than anything else that the absentee ballot business was just a bunch of crap, and it made them mad what happened, the one-sidedness of it. Most of them thought that, without a doubt, that it happened because Richard Nixon came to Leslie County, and for no other reason. And that's what they believe, and that's the reason we won. Of course, I still have battles to win, not political battles. I've got an opponent this fall, but he's just like a mosquito flying around. That'll be no problem. I've got to win in court. I've got to be vindicated on the appeal. And, of course, we think that's going to happen.
Did you say you're a pretty happy man?
I'm tickled to death. I think it's a personal vindication of me by the people of Leslie County. And beyond Leslie County, I really don't care what people think.
Although Muncie won the May 26 primary election, he was defeated in November by another Republican, Kermit Keene, who ran as an independent.
Part of the tragedy with a guy like Muncie was he did a lot of good things up there, but they did not return him to office. You know, you'd like to think that the reason they didn't return him to office is they lost confidence in his integrity by reason of that conviction. People in Leslie County and everywhere else they can't be deceived all the time. And perhaps the election was, in a sense, a verdict of the county.